Lacey, do you know what M stands for?
Money.
Correct. This BMW M5 starts at just over $100,000, and for roughly $130,000, you can get the BMW M6 Cabriolet.
Convertible, that's mine. Give me the keys.
You know what, Lacey? You can keep the M6. It's all M5 for me. It's the benchmark in high-performance luxury sedans.
Both of these 2013 M cars are brand new and built off existing BMW models, the 5 and 6 series. The M5 gets a bigger front spoiler, dual exhaust, M badging, chunky 20-inch wheels, and big blue brakes. The M6 also receives a similar treatment, but the elegant basis of the 6 series shows through. It's still sleek rather than the blunt-looking M5.
Here's the big difference with the M5. Gone is the V10 engine. They've gone to the 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged engine found in the X5 and X6 Ms and modified it for both of these cars. It puts out 560 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque.
Both these cars are rear-wheel drive vehicles only, which is something that Audi owners might not appreciate. Now, I love the soft top on this M6 because you get tons of power and no roof. And I also want to point out that with the soft top down, there's still a fair bit of room in the trunk when the roof is stored.
Now, the M5 might have a roof, but it's also got 2 extra doors and a back seat that can actually be used. Have you looked at the back seat of that M6? It's almost a joke. I had to drive my kids around on the back and I was scrunched up to the steering wheel like this. This is the ultimate daddy car. Drop the kids off at school, then terrorize the neighborhood.
The interior of both cars is a showcase in German functionality, luxury, and sportiness. The seats are very supportive, and there are a few M touches inside the cabin. The steering wheel of the M6 is a bit slimmer than the bulky M5. Both have settings for the steering, chassis, and engine. Then there's a setting for the crispness of the dual-clutch 7-speed automatic transmission. Historically, BMW has had these uber-powered M cars all to themselves, but that's no longer the case. We now have Audi RS, Mercedes AMG, Cadillac with their V Series, Jaguar with their R Series, just to name a few. So these new M Series cars will need to be pretty special.
And they are to a point. BMW rates both of these cars at a run to 100 kilometers an hour at just 4.4 seconds. That's lightning quick. But the thing is about this car, first gear is so tall that when you take off from a stop, you're out of first gear and into second so quickly, which makes driving in the city rather choppy.
Well, that's true, but what Zach didn't mention is that both of these cars can be fully set up by the driver at the touch of a button located on the shifter. Now, you can get a mode that's completely luxurious or ready for the track. For example, in comfort mode, the transmission starts in second gear for a much smoother acceleration.
That is a good point. Now, one thing I have to point out on both these cars is the steering is fantastic. No electric power steering here. It's the good old hydraulic kind, and that really is the way to go in a performance car like this. It's unbelievable. You can feel so much through the steering wheel. You can even feel seams and ruts in the road right through the wheel. It's like the Princess and the Pea. Remember the Princess could feel the pea through, what was it, 100 mattresses? The same thing with this car.
The steering is very direct, but when the driver selects the firmer steering setting, the heaviness of the wheel feels a bit artificial. Having driven both these cars, I think the M5 is the one you want for the track, and the M6 would be the car that you'd want to drive every day. The shorter wheelbase makes it feel a little bit more tossable in city traffic, and the added weight isn't a factor.
Both of these cars can be programmed by the owner to individual tastes that are accessed and memorized by these M buttons on the wheel. Now, the reality is the driver of this car daily will probably have their favorite setting and just leave it. And that's why a lot of this stuff is overkill, unless you take an M5 to the track, and I doubt many people will do that. Here's the thing about this car is it's better than the old model. They got rid of the V10, they got rid of the crappy SMG transmission. Actually, that's a thing way in the distance. This car is bigger than the M5 has ever been, and I really yearn for the simplicity of the M5 from, say, 10 years ago. V8 engine, manual transmission, smaller, simpler design. It was the car and the driver, and that's it. That car, for me, was the epitome of M5 design.
Well, I'm too young to remember that car, but what old man Spencer fails to say is that with 2 turbochargers and direct injection, this modern car has a 30% improvement on fuel over the old V10, and it still produces full torque at just 1500 RPM. Now that's what I call progress. The dual-clutch 7-speed automatic also helps in this department, and it's a very pleasing unit to use, but not as crisp and refined as the PDK unit in the Porsche Panamera Turbo.
So Lacey, how did you like driving an M car?
You know what, Zach? I liked it. One of the things that really stood out for me was the different drive modes. There really is something for every driver. Whether you want a smooth, luxurious, nice ride or you want something with more power, more aggression, you get the best of both worlds. I love the styling. They're both very, very good-looking cars. Hot. Now, I know people spending this type of money on cars aren't going to be too worried about it, but the 30% improvement on fuel economy is definitely welcomed. And the fit and finish on the interior, top-notch, which does lead me, though, to a few of the things I don't like. Even though they're top-notch materials inside, I don't like the overall look and feel of it. It just kind of seems simple and boring for a car like this. The M6 doesn't have a lot of room in the back seat, and then really just with all the competition out there nowadays, the M car just doesn't have the same cachet as it used to.
It kind of used to stand all alone, didn't it? You know what? This car has a lot going for it. Number one, power. 560 horsepower. This thing is so powerful. The steering is so direct. They didn't go for an electric assist. It's a direct hydraulic system, and it feels wonderful back to the driver. The seats are very comfortable, and as Lacey mentioned, gorgeous looking cars. On the downside, if you're driving this car day after day, especially in city traffic, the dual clutch automatic transmission, especially in first gear, can be a little jerky on and off, and that's when you go, as Lacey mentioned, to the comfort mode, start you off in second gear. No manual transmission. Speaking of transmissions, you know, guys still like to roll their own gears, and the simplicity of the original M cars is long gone. These cars are so sophisticated. They have all of the electronic aids, and really there's nowhere to exercise all of the advancements that you have in this car. We don't have an Autobahn. So Lacey, the real question is, you got these 2 beautiful M cars, 560 horsepower, all the gadgets you could ever want. Is it overkill for the type of driving we do in North America?
You know what, Zach? I think it is just a little bit, but we both know that there's a market out there and people will buy this car. There are people that want every little technology and advancement that they can get, and they'll fork over all their money
and money to get
to get it.
Looking for a luxury car? We have all the reviews on our website at drivingtelevision.com.